listen to these guys. Hey everybody, Chris with Hikes. Welcome back. If you're new here, this channel is for beginning backpackers. And on this channel, we talk about everything I wish I would have known when I was just starting out 25 years ago. So I'll bet you guys have probably heard the term base weight, maybe seen some videos on that. And there's a lot of emphasis on base weight. A lot of people brag about their base weight. And today I'm here to tell you that none of that matters. All right, so just to be on the same page, let's define base weight. Base weight's a term used for all the items you're packing in your backpack, minus consumables. So we're not counting fuel for your stove, we're not counting any water that you're carrying, and we're not counting any of the food that you're bringing. Why? I suppose the reason is that as you go on your hike, backpacking trip, you're going to be eating the food, you're going to be using some of the fuel, you're going to be drinking some of the water. And so as time goes on out there, you're going to be carrying less and less weight. So base weight is the base, basically the lightest you're going to be out there. So when we're talking about base weight, we're talking about things like your tent. We're talking about things like your sleeping pad, sleeping bag, basically everything but food, water, and fuel. So let's head to the living room real quick. I'm going to show you my pack for a trip to the Canyonlands, and we'll talk about the base weight. So let's go. Okay, so recreating my trip to the Canyonlands in Utah, I spent 2 nights, 3 days hiking out there in the desert, and I had a pretty light base weight. So what I have here is that pack, all packed up and ready to go, trying to stay light out in the desert, and my base weight, 7.36 pounds. Pretty impressive. So what do I have in here? Just the essentials. Got my sleeping pad right here on the back. Cooking pot. Stove. X-Mid tent. .40-degree bag. And that's it. Low base weight. But we're not ready to go. We have to eat, have to drink, have to have fuel to make the stove work. So let's add our food. So food for 3 days out in the desert. This is going to be another 3.74 pounds. And since we're going to the Needles District of the Canyonlands, there's no water out there. So gonna have to bring all the water we need for 3 days. So let's pack that. 3.87 pounds each. Hopefully this will be enough to get us through. So 7.36 pound base weight. But after I add everything else that doesn't count toward base weight, I have a pack that is 18.84 pounds. Now, overall, that's pretty light, but just to demonstrate the idea of base weight, that is 11.5 pounds more that I'm carrying than what my base weight is. So who cares about base weight? I'm not carrying my base weight. I'm carrying more than twice that. So that's why base weight doesn't matter. See, base weight's only part of the equation, right? So with that pack, I'm carrying over twice what my base weight is. So why does base weight even matter, right? You can have a pretty low base weight and still be carrying a ton of weight. And under other circumstances, you might have a pretty high base weight, but still be carrying less than that other person, depending on the circumstances, what you're bringing for food, where you're going. So don't get too caught up in base weight. In fact, I never even heard that term until probably the last 5 or 10 years, because I didn't watch YouTube and go on the internet to learn how to go backpacking. So when I was out there, I would weigh my pack. I would know how much I'm carrying. If it got lighter toward the end of the trip, it didn't matter, because starting out, I'm carrying all of that weight. Base weight was a nonsense number for me if I'd even known what that meant. So let's talk about comfort for a minute. So if you get too caught up in this whole ultralight base weight idea, you can end up like Jupiter. If you go check out his channel, he's done a bunch of these long trails, and he talks about going ultralight. And if you look at the gear he used back then, like tiny little sleeping pads, just tarps, and he got a lot of miles in, but it looks miserable at camp. So think about comfort. The lighter you go, unless you're spending enormous amounts of money, the less comfortable you're going to be in camp. Sure, your pack may be lighter on the trail. And if you're doing 30-mile days, which I hope you're not if you're just getting into backpacking, maybe that's okay. But most of us weekend warriors like to go out there and be comfortable after a long, hard hike. So you're looking for balance. You want to be comfortable on the trail and in camp. If you're just focusing on a low base weight, odds are you're going to be very uncomfortable in camp. And maybe you're going to get super, super cold because you're carrying a lighter sleeping bag or just a puffy blanket, or you're freezing because you have no sleeping pad or just this half-inch little thing that you roll out. And if you have a miserable experience, you're not going to want to go back out there again. And you're not going to have energy or the right attitude the next day if you're getting up and hiking another 10, 15 miles. So let's take a look at it from a different angle. So if you're cutting weight to get a low base weight, maybe you're leaving out things that you think maybe you won't need. Maybe you leave out your first aid kit. Maybe you leave out a water filter because you want to take your chances up there and drink out of the streams because, you know, you've never had a problem with that. And now you have a low base weight and you start thinking about comfort out there. And now that your weight is way down, maybe you think, well, I took those things out. Maybe I can bring a camp chair. Maybe I can bring a hammock. Maybe I can bring a portable television. So you could get into the mindset where you're cutting weight just so you can bring other things because you're going to have the same weight you would have had anyway. Yeah, maybe that's cool to have some luxury items. It's not cool to leave out something that's going to keep you safer. And that's where we can really get into trouble, is if you're so focused on a super light base weight, then you could get to the point where you're not going to be safe out there because you're not bringing the right gear for the circumstances or the weather. You're not bringing the things that are going to keep you safe. And maybe you're bringing food that's also super light because you want to keep everything down overall, and you're not thinking about calories. So base weight can get you into trouble if you start obsessing about it. And another thing, lighter gear is way more expensive. So if you're obsessing about a lighter base weight, yeah, you can shave a few ounces, but you're going to shave hundreds of dollars off your bank account. And if you are watching this channel because you're interested in getting out there and going backpacking, or you're just getting started and you're looking for gear, forget about all that other stuff you see here about all these ultralight $1,000 tents and all of these ultra light bags that are going to keep you warm at negative 30 degrees as long as you spend $800. You don't want to invest a whole bunch of money into something that you're going to go try out and see if it's right for you backpacking and find out you hate it, that you don't like bugs or you don't like dirt, and all that stuff goes in your garage. So spend less money starting out, and that means that your gear is probably going to be a little heavier. And that's okay, because you can still keep your pack a little lighter without getting obsessive by making smart choices. And we can talk about that in another video, having things that have more than one purpose, how you can cut some weight without spending a lot of money. That sounds probably like every video everybody's ever done, but you don't need to spend a bunch of money. And if you obsess about these things and spend thousands of dollars and then suddenly lose interest or just never even go in the first place, well, that's pretty tragic. I mean, your kids need to eat, right? So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, base weight is kind of a nonsense number, because it has nothing to do with how much you're actually going to be carrying out there. So weigh your pack. That's what you're carrying when it's all packed up. And if it's less as you go on because you eat food, great. I love, after an 8-day trip in the backcountry with tons of food, how much lighter my pack is after that 8th day. But that first day, base weight doesn't matter at all because I am lugging a whole shit ton of food, right? So don't get caught up in that. You know, if you'd never heard that term, you never would have thought about how much does my pack weigh without my food and water. You're thinking about how much your pack weighs. And you can cut some weight, but don't do it to the point where you're not being safe. And, you know, that's not to say base weight doesn't matter at all. Because if you don't think about how much your pack weighs before you put all the food and everything in there, yeah, it's easy to throw in stuff just for peace of mind. 2 extra pairs of pants, extra pair of shoes just in case you throw one off a cliff like Cheryl Strayed. So yeah, you can think in terms of a lower base weight is going to be a lower pack weight overall. I mean, that makes sense. But everything's included. So don't obsess about base weight unless you want to brag to other hikers that obsess about base weight. Otherwise, it just doesn't matter. So if you're just starting out, all these ideas that come off of the internet and people sharing their ideas like base weight, they don't matter. That wasn't a thing that I knew about 25 years ago when I started, and it never influenced me whatsoever. I don't even look at base weight. I just weigh my pack. And if it's super heavy because I'm thinking, oh God, maybe I need this, it's a great opportunity to go back, see what I don't need, you know, and get to a weight where I'm going to have everything to be safe and comfortable, but not a ton of shit that I'm going to be really angry that I brought, like on the Pacific Crest Trail when I threw out like 3 pounds of food and gear because after the first 2 days, I was just discouraged because it was so heavy and I realized I had a bunch of stuff I didn't need. So think about weight, forget about base weight, and I appreciate you guys watching. I'm sure there will be comments for and against, so I look forward to that. I want to thank you guys for watching. If this was helpful, please consider subscribing, and I'll keep trying to help out everybody that's getting into this. So see you guys next time.